The Saratoga has been blown to bits.
All systems okay. Go!
Here comes the next attack wave. Deploy all suits, now. I was drafted into the Marine Corps of the Pacific States when I was 22 years old. By the time I finished my training with the assault suits, the war had begun. Everyone knew that it was a fight for the little fossil fuel that remained on Earth, and for territorial rights on the Moon. Our leaders had no intention of sharing their limited wealth with the enemy. I fight not for patriotism or for justice. I fight because I'm a soldier. For a soldier, survival depends on fighting and defeating the enemy. Well, that drum sample was a little bit weak to end on. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Play Cybernator. I mentioned this game in a couple of other LPs, namely Not-Zeon and Metal Warriors, as the other mecha platformer on the Super Nintendo. Now we're going to start off pretty much with defaults. One thing I should recommend is hold L, R, and up before pressing start in order to double your amount of starting lives. You're going to need them. The job of destroying the enemy battlecraft was assigned to our platoon. The plan was to use the Versus battlecraft to force our way into the colony, and to destroy the ship's engine block. The plan was a dangerous one, and we knew that some of us would not return. Well, this game clearly has a very uplifting outlook on life. The ship will break into the enemy colony. Our goal is the battlecraft under construction. There. After penetration, deploy the assault suits. This is Jake. I'm out of here. Captain, I'm getting energy readings from the bow of the enemy warship. Right in front of this ship. What? Are the beam guns firing already? Has the energy unit been connected? No, not yet. But there's no time. Roger. I'll destroy it. Versus retreat. Alright, starting off, this game's control scheme is pretty complicated, but also very similar to Metal Warriors. You press and hold the D-pad up and down in order to aim your gun up and down, but you hold the L button in order to keep it in one place. That there is a power chip that upgrades our weapon slowly. If you look in the top right, you notice I'm using the Vulcan weapon, and there's a 3 there. The 3 is how many power chips I have until it's upgraded to level 2, and whenever you upgrade a weapon, its power increases. Usually it has a bit more ammo before being required to be reloaded, things of that nature. For instance, you might notice the Vulcan, as I slowly use it, the red bar drains. Things of that nature. Pressing the A button causes you to do a bit of a sit-down dash, which you increase your speed moving forward for a little bit, though you are forced to move a little bit forward while using it, or backwards, should the case be. You're forced into momentum either way, and if you hold the R button, you also pull up a shield, which will block a lot of attacks. One thing I should note, though, is that that red bar on the top is your health bar, and it drains pretty quickly. This game doesn't hold back with the damage output. So be careful. I've already upgraded my Vulcan to level 2 just to make the first boss fight go by a bit quicker, by the way. There's not many things enemies can drop. I think there's the occasional 1-up, but most of the 1-ups you'll be getting are from points, from just destroying enemies. The main things you'll be finding are power chips, which are dropped from boxes or by killing a certain amount of enemies per playthrough, which are used to upgrade your weapons, as I mentioned earlier. W's, which are just straight up new weapons, but those aren't in every stage, and H's, which are health chips, which restore about 25% of your health. You also have 2 weapons to start, notably, a punch and the Vulcan. This is Jake. I found the energy unit. Roger. Destroy it immediately. That's in order. The punch is really good for close range stuff, and it's also pretty powerful against relatively non-moving things. So the first boss is the engine block, and this is a timed fight. If it gets up to the top of the screen, well, I'll show what happens then at the end of the part. The only thing that actively attacks you in this fight, though, are the cannons that spawn to the left and right. And while they do respawn, they have so little health that either the level 2 Vulcan or the punch can take down both portions of the boss fight in really quick span. All right, we're out of here. Full speed ahead. And that's stage 1. Pretty simple stuff. Enemy manufacturer of the heavy artillery was very active. Ore mined from the moon was sent into a satellite orbit, where it was processed. After destroying the enemy spaceship, we headed to the satellite orbit, rife with floating asteroids, to destroy their ore processing facilities. Can the screen scroll a little bit faster, please? All suits advance. Don't run into any roids. Jake, the general course is plotted in the ship's computer. But use manual control to get past the asteroids. Don't worry about me. Alright, so stage 2 starts off with an autoscroller, and you do need to keep in mind the asteroids, because if they drag you off screen, you are just straight up dead. I recommend using the Vulcan gun here more than anything, though, as with the damage you could have gotten from the upgrade in stage 1 by getting all the power chips, which I am going out of my way more often than not to get as many as I can, as quickly as I can. You should have no problem taking out the enemies here in relatively quick manner. The only thing that's really annoying here beyond the asteroids is the small enemies. Their projectiles can be really easy to lose track of with the amount of things going on screen sometimes. And sometimes they're just in such a pattern that with the asteroids around you, you can't actively dodge without dodging into them, which is kind of annoying. With that said, this entire stage isn't an auto-scroller. It stops right about here. I've arrived at the checkpoint. Boosters away. Roger. Advance with care. So now we're in a low gravity stage. There's a couple of these throughout the game. You're not dragged down to the floor. It's more so you have 8 directional control while jumping. You do still need to be careful, though, as the turrets around here can do a lot of damage, and there's mines specifically on a lot of the asteroids that if you get too close to will do a lot of damage. Yeah, that was a good 1/8 of my health there. You really need to be careful here. This game doesn't exactly toy around with its difficulty. There's a reason I recommended doubling your lives at the start with that little cheat code. And even then, this is one of those games where you don't have continues outright. If I die and lose all my lives, I go back to stage 1. Thankfully, the game isn't too terribly long, so getting back doesn't take too terribly long, but still. Now, in that previous weapons box, I actually got a new weapon, the missile launcher. The missiles, as what you would think for games like this, are super high damage, but they're very slow, and you have a limited amount of them per stage. So you need to make sure you only really use them on enemies you know they're good against, like boss fights. And even then, you need to be careful during boss fights, as sometimes the enemies will just straight up block your attacks. Level 2 for the Vulcan, by the way, increases the size of the projectiles, and I believe makes them bounce more frequently off of the surroundings. While level 2 for the punch, I think, is just a charge increase and it does more damage. Level 2 for the missiles is where things start to get a bit more interesting, as I believe it starts adding homing capabilities. With that said, health resources in this game are pretty limited all the same, so make sure that you're approaching the levels in this game at a comfortable pace. Don't rush it. Alright, that's it. Huh? What's that? Did something happen? I just got an energy reading from the bedrock in front of me. It was pretty big. Huh, I picked up something there too. I have a bad feeling about this. I'll go and check it out. Alright, it probably isn't anything too major. Why do I hear boss music? Mobile artillery! Boss 2 is this weird ship thing. With that said, this is one of the more annoying bosses in the game because its main attacks are firing missiles out of its back while encircling itself with meteorites. Sometimes they'll drop health, but it'll just throw the meteors at you, and there's two notable varieties of them. Ones that have guns and ones that don't. The ones that have guns, they don't track their shots into you, but they do generally still try to aim for you altitude-wise. While the ones that don't have guns, it'll either encircle around itself like a shield or throw at you, and they'll do a bunch of damage. There is a notable save spot on the top left of the screen from at least most of the guns, but the asteroids that don't do that will still try to fling themselves into you. This is Jake. I have destroyed the enemies. Mobile artillery. Good job. Mission accomplished. Return home. Dialogue pacing in this game is weird. Now, normally that's where I'm going to end the part, but I should show off some notably interesting things you could do in the first two stages. Namely, if you go through the first stage and don't attack anything until the two phases of the engine block at the boss fight, you get a very particular reward. You can't destroy the cannons, you just have to aim straight up at the engine block pieces. This is a point where I would not recommend using the punch, as you just do some... the punch has enough range that you can accidentally destroy the cannons. Thankfully, since this thing has so little health, even if you took damage along the way, you'll probably still get out of this fight scot-free. That said, I should note, checkpoints in this game are a bit sparse, in that there are no checkpoints in this stage. I believe stage 1, if you die, it start all the way back to the start. Stage 2, I believe, will at least put you maybe at the 8-directional control section. But otherwise, unless it's a screen transition, there's not a checkpoint. Now, there's a very particular reason you want to do this. If you end that stage with just the score you get from the two sections of the boss fight, 2800, you get a new gun, the napalm gun. While it has a slow recharge and only like 8 shots per bar, this is the most powerful weapon in the game. It does ridiculous damage. With that said, it does obey the laws of gravity if you're ever in a gravitied area, so it will fall down. With that said, whenever you see me showing substitute footage throughout this LP of other things that can happen through the stages, you'll likely see me with the napalm gun because I did a second playthrough with the napalm gun just to have it and show it off. And to showcase just how absolutely bonkers powerful this weapon is, I in a moment am going to be jump cutting to the mobile artillery boss fight we just went through in order to show how fast that fight is with this. So let's cut the shots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Goddamn! Also, I should note, for that boss fight, I recommend holding the L button in order to make your gun not move, even if you hold up and down. I forget if I mentioned that back in stage 1. While you can aim with the D-pad, holding L keeps it in one place, in case I didn't mention that, which I think I did, but I can't quite recall. Now, I should also note, there's one other interesting thing you can do during stage 1. Like I think I mentioned, the boss fight here is timed, so if you let the engine block escape, you fail the mission. Not every mission in this game has a fail state beyond game over. Only a few do, and I'm showing every single one of them, but the interesting thing is, on a couple of missions, you continue on from the mission fail state. This one, you don't, though. In fact, getting a mission fail state here is a bit odd compared to the other ones. And then most of the other ones, it's just, oh no, you lost a life. Start up from the last checkpoint. I think in this case, it's a straight up game over? The energy unit was connected. No, retreat. Full reverse. Oh no! And everyone we knew and loved died. you don't get a chance to continue. Mean. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we're going to continue on into stage 3. See you guys then.